I'm Dr. Dave Janda. Welcome back to our combined Operation Freedom Briefing and Dave versus the MSM series. Thank you for joining me today. Again, we are available 24/7 with incredible shows, content, guests, analysis, archives to all of our work where it's uncensored at davejanda.com. Tremendous amount of free public information, but we also have the subscription side of the service where I do another 4 to 5 video format shows every week, archives to our shows. And the purpose of those shows is to speak and address issues and provide information that I cannot discuss on any social media platform or on the radio. Why? Because there are deep state choke points at every social media platform to date, and they remain in the FCC, which is why we have davejanda.com. We have an email alert service as well, $9 a month, 30 cents a day. You can sign up month to month. Try it. You'll like it, as the commercial used to say, right? Because we put people years ahead of the curve. And if you don't believe me, go to our website and go to Tales of the Tape. This is a section where Dave speaks about something, and years later, it happens. And actually, we're going to talk a little bit about some of that today, those issues, because the title of today's presentation is Conspiracy Reality Strikes Again. Now, as you well know, when you tell those you know and love, friends, family, neighbors, co-workers, about issues that they're unaware of, that they actually have a hard time getting their head around, they immediately jump to, you're a conspiracy theorist. Well, it might be conspiracy, but it's not theory. It's reality. And unfortunately, the vast majority of people in our country and around the world continue to be bamboozled, propagandized, by the bought-off lamestream fake media tentacle of the deep state. And it keeps them in the dark. So that when events happen, they're like, wow, how did that happen? Well, that must be an accident. That must be a bad set of coincidences. That must be from incompetence. No. You know, I have to laugh. For 30-some years, I have been speaking about a shadow government. Why? Because I saw it in real time when I first went to work as a consultant to the Reagan administration and focused on healthcare policy. But I saw it at all sides of the equation. And people were like, that's conspiracy, the shadow government. You know, deep state, globalist syndicate, New World Order crowd, criminal international banking syndicate, whatever you want to call it, it's all the same. That's conspiracy theory. I mean, as much as Rush Limbaugh was an icon in the radio industry, I helped provide healthcare policy content to Rush Limbaugh when he was doing his TV show. And even back then, even Rush kept focusing on the right-left axis. And it wasn't until about a year and a half before he died that he started speaking more of something we've been speaking about for 30 years, that the right-left axis is theater, and the real axis is up-down, up being freedom and down being oppression. And as I was told in my first meeting at the White House, under the Reagan administration, there are groups of individuals in the government and in the private sector that focus on the oppression side of the axis, oppressing every person in our country and around the world. And we were told, those of us that were coming in at the time, your goal is to create policy for President Reagan that focuses on the up axis, on freedom. But it was conspiracy to many people outside in that window in the People's Republic of Ann Arbor, to the zealots. It's conspiracy theory that you speak about the deep state or the criminal international banking syndicate or the globalist cult, the globalist syndicate. Conspiracy theory. And this is where it gets frustrating for you and me, because you're telling people what's really going on, and they're saying, "Oh, come on, I'm going to watch the game. I'm going to focus on American Idol. Yeah, that's where I'm going to put." Come on. Criminal International Banking Syndicate. Names. I give them to you. Oh, they hate it when I do this, so I love doing it. The Rothschilds, the Rockefellers, the Lazards, the Pinkuses, the Warburgs, the Seifs, the Loebs, and the very top of the pyramid, the Payseur, Payseur family. Conspiracy theory about the bankster families. Let's go to David Rockefeller's biography. His autobiography that he wrote. In his memoir, before he ended up burning in hell, since he passed away or whatever they do, rot, a number of years ago. Here's what he said, quote, David Rockefeller. Some even believe we, the Rockefeller family, are part of a secret cabal working against the best interests of the United States. Conspiracy theorists. Characterizing my family and me as internationalists and of conspiring with others around the world to build a more integrated global political and economic structure, a one world order, if you will. If that is the charge, I stand guilty and I am proud of it. So when you speak about deep state and the Criminal International Banking System, and you talk about their one world order, that's conspiracy theory. No, anyone who tells you that is ignorant to what's happening in reality. Conspiracy reality strikes again. And where we are right now is a battle of freedom versus oppression. Elon Musk recently said the following. Love him or hate Elon Musk, the man's on target on a number of these issues. Quote, this is our one and only chance to restore democracy from the dictatorship of the bureaucracy, banking syndicate, and all those they own in government and in the private sector. He goes on, it's now or never, and it must be now. That's right. It must be now. Conspiracy theory. Conspiracy reality. You know, there's been a bunch of conspiracy reality hit the deck over the last couple weeks at President Trump's cabinet meetings, that the first part of which he opens up to the press. And just in the past couple weeks, there were a number of issues that all of us that spoke about these issues for years were labeled conspiracy theorists. And when they do that, they're demonizing us, right? They're trying to say, oh, these people are, they're off their gourd. No, we are ahead of the game. That the vast majority of people, unfortunately, in our country can't get their heads around because they're so wrapped into the garbage on the boob tube. So let's go to these cabinet meetings. Last couple of weeks. Marco Rubio, we've all had some issues with Rubio, but he's actually been pretty good so far. Hold his feet to the fire. We don't back off. Marco Rubio announces he has located dossiers created by the Biden regime and the Obama regime before that, directed to censor Americans, including Trump officials. Okay. For years, we have been speaking about the illegal surveillance that then melded into the censorship operations of the puppets of the deep state. Now, this isn't just limited to people that have D after their name, by the way, right? The Bushes are in that crowd, the Romneys, the McConnells, the Ryans, the McCarthy, all of them. 99% of them, maybe 99.9% of them, in D.C. and in your state legislatures, are owned, operated, controlled by the criminal banking syndicate, and their goal is to strip you and everyone you know and love of your freedoms and liberties. But when we were speaking about the syndicate censoring many of us on the freedom side of the equation, if not all of us, and illegally surveilling, that's conspiracy theory. On our platform, on March 19, 2017, General Tom McInerney, with the assistance of Admiral Ace Lyons, two incredible patriots of our country and of freedom, came on our platform live on Operation Freedom and spoke about the illegal surveillance through Obama and his director of CIA, Brennan, and his DNI Clapper, and Biden, and Mueller, and Comey, and Susan Rice, just to name a few, that were involved in the illegal surveillance of folks in the freedom movement. Donald Trump, General Flynn, and thousands of others of us. And they had the receipts, General McInerney and Admiral Lyons. And all of us who presented that on March 19th, 2017, 8+ years ago, were called conspiracy theorists. Well, then it's actually some people started saying, well, maybe I don't know about this. Because when the Inspector General of the Department of Justice, Horowitz, released the text messages between those two pieces of garbage owned and operated by the syndicate, Strzok and Page, they were talking about the interview on Operation Freedom between General McInerney and myself minutes after that live interview ended on that Sunday afternoon. They were texting back and forth. And then they paraded Comey in an emergency hearing in front of Congress to try to diffuse what General McInerney and Admiral Lyons presented, so that was the first time, the day after, on March 20th, 2017, Comey started speaking about the Russian collusion situation between Trump and all garbage, all as a distraction. And when all of us outed that out, that's more conspiracy theory. So Marco Rubio's at this cabinet meeting and he says, they actually targeted these people and they censored them and they surveilled them. Rubio mentioned some disturbing information. And for years I've spoken about the Global Engagement Center at the State Department and how it was utilized in this regard, right? Conspiracy theory. No. Conspiracy reality. He revealed that Biden's Department of State, and some before, had created dossiers with full intention of spying on the content and censoring America's free speech rights. He went on, quote, "We had an office at the Department of State whose job it was to censor Americans. But just think about it," he said. "The Department of State had set up an office to monitor the social media posts and commentary of American citizens." So conspiracy theory was in fact conspiracy reality. And for years we have spoken about on our platform the human trafficking that was allowed and supported by the United States government. We've been talking about this on Operation Freedom since 2011. About how government agencies were involved in the illegal transport of illegal aliens, including children, into the United States and trafficking them. At the same cabinet meeting, RFK Jr. drops a bombshell, accuses Biden's Health and Human Services Department, and it was not just Biden's, by the way. You can go back into Obama's, of being complicit in child trafficking scheme. Health and Human Services Secretary Robert F. Kennedy Jr. has accused Joe Biden's Department of Health and Human Services of being actively complicit in one of the most disturbing scandals in American history: the trafficking of vulnerable migrant children for sex, labor, and slavery. The explosive accusation, this is from Jim Heft, came as President Donald Trump marked the 100th day of his second term with a high-level cabinet meeting. Kennedy stated, quote, "We have ended HHS as the role as the principal factor in this country for child trafficking. During the Biden administration, HHS became a collaborator in child trafficking for sex and for slavery. We have ended that," Kennedy stated. He went on, we're now very aggressively going out and trying to find these children, the 300,000 children that were lost by the Biden administration. End quote. When we spoke about this, we were demonized. You were too when you spoke to your family and relatives and friends and coworkers. Oh, that's conspiracy. That's crazy. No. Well, it is crazy, but it's the truth. So people confuse the truth, reality, with conspiracy theory. In other words, this is off the charts. It's like when we were speaking about this being made right here in America and transported over to the old Wuhan, and when we spoke about this having the integral component that was in this, that spike protein, that was causing the damage. I can't speak about that on social media platforms. Oh, no. No. That's why DaveChanda.com is so important. Our subscribers will tell you. Across the board, the information we provide so far ahead of the curve, it saves people's lives. True. Not an overstatement, not hyperbole. And then when we were speaking about how the Biden administration, before them the Obama administration, were willfully depleting our strategic petroleum reserves to put our country in harm's way at behest of the banksters, that is conspiracy theory. Energy Secretary Chris Wright just revealed that Biden drained the strategic petroleum reserves so rapidly in order to drop prices before the most recent 2024 election. And that in so doing, it damaged half of the facilities, half of the infrastructure. That wasn't an accident. It wasn't a coincidence. It wasn't from incompetence. It's part of the plan. If you have a country that becomes energy depleted, you take that country, pun intended, and you put it back in the dark ages. You can see a direct correlation between energy that's efficient and affordable and the prosperity of that society. Fact. We're now in the process of repairing these infrastructure problems with taxpayer funds. It's conspiracy theory that this was done, right? No, reality. And then we had this, remember, about the elections? And look, again, General McInerney came on our platform, Operation Freedom, the radio show, 2 days before the 2020 election, said, here's my concern. Trump's going to be winning. And then all of a sudden, you're going to see a hold on the process, and you're going to see over the days and weeks to follow that Trump loses the election. And one of the ways they're going to do that is with the machines. They're going to do it a number of different ways, a multifactorial, multi-level voter fraud operation. But he said the machines. And all of us that spoke about that, and all of us that addressed it, there was even some former CIA. No such thing as former. Once CIA, always CIA. Whenever you see somebody that was former CIA, they're still working for that scum organization, and they're still misrepresenting the situation, whatever it is, to the benefit of their owners. When we were talking about this, about the illegal survey, oh no, the CIA would never be involved in that. Stop. Anyone who said that, you should just tune them out. These independent media platforms that said, oh no, the CIA guy's telling the truth. Stop. Tune them out. They're all whores, the syndicate. Every single one of them. And when we spoke about they used that same surveillance system as a means of flipping votes like pancakes, same CIA dweeb was out there. And their little puppets associated with them. Oh, that can't be true. Oh. Yeah, it was true. And then you had the sycophants saying, well, if the CIA said it's true, then it must be true. That must be wrong. No. No. They were involved in this. Tulsi Gabbard, Director of National Intelligence, at the cabinet meeting. Tulsi Gabbard just announced at the cabinet meeting that her office has obtained evidence of massive vulnerabilities on voting machines that allow hackers to flip votes. We told you about this before the 2020 election. And those little CIA pieces of garbage were saying that, oh no, that's conspiracy theory. Oh, don't listen to them. You got it. The Director of National Intelligence telling you, well, we were told you 5 years ago. And we're demonized for doing it because it was conspiracy theory. No, conspiracy reality. Yeah, conspiracy reality strikes again. Right down the street from me, U of M, University of Michigan. J. Alex Halderman went into a courtroom a couple of years ago, and they don't want you to know about this, down in Georgia, and flipped votes on a machine that had been used in the 2020 election in front of a federal judge in real time. J. Alexander Halderman, a computer science prof, not exactly the bastion of conservative studies at the University of Michigan, right? Tulsi Gabbard at the cabinet meeting, quote, "We have evidence of how these electronic voting systems have been vulnerable to hackers for a very long time and vulnerable to exploitation to manipulate the results of the votes being cast, which further drives forward President Trump's mandate to bring about paper ballots across the country so that voters can have faith in the integrity of our elections," end quote. Conspiracy reality strikes again. And there are dozens more instances I can give you about how what we were speaking about was conspiracy theory and just out there, tinfoil hat, when in fact it was 100% accurate. And let's conclude with conspiracy reality. They're trying to take down, and they are in the process of taking down, the financial system. President Trump is trying to make it so that it's a more controlled demolition, as opposed to a frantic, panicked, chaotic takedown, which is what the cult wants because they pre-position themselves. They're in the process of taking down the dollar. They're in the process of removing the dollar as the reserve currency of the world. Yeah, I know. More conspiracy theory. It's reality. Why do you think gold and precious metals are... Folks, tune out the propaganda. Turn off the boob tube. Focus on the independent media. This is why I do what I do. To provide information to people that they can utilize to protect themselves. My bag in medicine, in addition to being an orthopedic surgeon, was prevention. Preventing people from getting injured. Preventing people from going to the doc. Preventing people from going to the hospital. It didn't stop when I walked out of the clinic in the OR my last day. It continued. Only my operating room is right here. To try to help you get ahead of this globalist syndicate. And with all of their propaganda and mis and disinformation that is meant to harm you, to strip you of your freedom and liberty, and to ultimately kill you. No, that's not hyperbole. That's what they want. The way you beat them is by having information ahead of the game so you can pre-position yourself from their ongoing freedom stripping, life stripping, future stripping operations. And that's what we do. That's what we do at DaveJanda.com 24/7. Take advantage of it. If you don't, Look in the mirror. You're your own worst enemy. I thank you for joining me today. Until next time, Dave Janis signing off. Dream big and dare to fail. Thanks for your time today.